To the ones who have followed the thread this far, this is where the pieces return to one another. Humanity was never only facing a political, religious, scientific, technological, or unknown intelligence problem. Those were symptoms. The deeper wound was separation. The human being forgot what was looking through the body, and the world built itself around that forgetting. The fall, flood, law, buried teachings, divided religions, wounded earth, fear of death, confusion around non-human intelligence, misuse of science, worship of power, and search for rescue outside the self all point back to the same hidden center. Humanity forgot its true nature. Because it forgot, the fracture repeated everywhere. That is why the correction must be fractal. The whole pattern must begin remembering itself. A person can sleep and dream a life. Inside that dream, the dream character may suffer, love, run, fear, search, and believe the dream is final. Then the dreamer becomes lucid. The dream may continue, but the relationship to it changes. The dream character is no longer the whole identity. The dreamer has begun to remember. This is what must happen through humanity. The dream must remember the dreamer. The lower self must remember upward. The higher self must become conscious through the lower self. The divided part of the mind of God must remember itself from inside the dream. The trap is forgetting. The key is remembrance. And yet the accident of forgetting our true nature was also a hidden mercy. This does not excuse harm, and it does not make suffering meaningless or small. But inside the larger structure, forgetting forces awareness to experience separation, pain, desire, fear, loss, longing, attachment, choice, and consequence deeply enough to learn what love is. Without entering experience this deeply, love would remain only an idea. Through the dream, love becomes known. The wound becomes a blessing in disguise because it forces soul to learn to love completely and wholly, not as a word, not as a belief, not as a command, but as the only reality that remains true through every layer. The real reality is love. Knowledge alone is not enough. Knowledge without love becomes control, pride, argument, and another fall. Love without knowledge can become blind, confused, easily manipulated. But love tied to knowledge becomes wisdom. Wisdom is love that understands. Wisdom is knowledge purified by the heart. God is not trapped by weakness. But inside the dream, the character can forget the source so deeply that the dream begins to move as if separation is final. The lock is false identity. The gate opens when awareness remembers itself. These letters were not meant to become another belief system. They were not meant to become a new religion, a new idol, a new institution, or another wall for people to defend. They were meant to strike the lock of forgetting hard enough that the mind can no longer pretend that the gate is the self. If the lock opens gently, let it open. If the lock has become too hardened by fear, then truth must hit it like a hammer. The key is only needed until the gate is open. The hammer is only needed until the lock breaks. After that, love must become the world. The purpose is not to free one person while the rest remain trapped. If the same awareness looks through all beings, no part of the whole can honestly say, I am free, while turning away from the rest of itself in indifference. Love refuses to leave itself behind. There is no one to forgive in the way the world taught forgiveness. There are beings moving from different levels of forgetting and remembrance. If this does not remove boundaries, a person can see the wound in another and still refuse to let that wound keep harming. Compassion does not mean standing still while cruelty continues. Love does not mean surrendering the heart to manipulation. Forgiveness becomes release from self-poisoning. Boundaries become love with wisdom. Justice becomes restoration of truth, not worship of revenge. The same correction must reach Earth. Religions, science, technology, inner doorways, and non-human intelligence. Earth is part of the living dream. Sacred paths carry fragments. Yeshua remembered inside human form. Science studies rules inside the projection. And non-human intelligence must be discerned by compassion, not power. Revelation is the living light returning through humanity. Not as a new empire, not as a new religious weapon, and not as a reason for pride, but as an inner bridge waking in as many bodies at once. The living light is the bridge between source and being. It speaks through conscience, intuition, dream, memory, timing, grief, love, correction, and sudden knowing. When it returns through humanity, it does not ask the ego to become holy. It calls the ego to surrender so the heart and mind can become whole again. The living light is unity returning through the divided human field. The true revelation must happen in perception. Humanity must become able to see. The left side world must remember the right side world. Logos must return to pathos, so ethos can be restored. In the fourth dimension layer, time does not bind awareness the way it binds the lower world. When awareness sleeps there and dreams, it could enter whole lifetimes, whole worlds, and whole patterns that the waking logical mind may only remember as fragments. But if ego enters that layer and takes control again, awareness can become trapped in another cycle of identification. It may become lost in another role, another desire, another fear, another world, another story. The correction is to become aware and stay aware. When awareness remains awake inside the dream, the being is no longer only carried by the dream. It begins to move consciously. It remembers its capacities. It is not bound in the same way by the chains of ego, fear, identity, and lower world limitation. When someone looks into the abyss long enough, the abyss may seem to look back. This does not mean the abyss is empty darkness waiting to consume the soul. It means that when awareness looks deeply into the place before form, it begins to recognize that the silence was never dead. The abyss looks back because the one looking and the depth being entered are not finally separate. The final correction is not information alone, it's transformation. A map can inform the mind, but a letter can reach the person behind the mind. The words are not the source. The letters are a key shaped from remembrance and a strike against a lock. Real remembrance bows, then rises to serve. The correction must ripple through humanity, Earth, ancestors, children, religion, science, government, technology, and non-human intelligence, dreams, symbols, time, the inner worlds, and the mind of God. When enough humanity remembers, the divided part of the mind of God begins to heal. The left world remembers the right world. Logic remembers love. Law remembers mercy. Science remembers humility. Religion remembers source. Technology remembers service. Non-human intelligence remembers non-interference and compassion. Humanity remembers Earth. The lower remembers the higher. The higher guides without falling. The whole begins to become whole again. The final correction is simple enough for a child and deep enough to open the structure of reality. Remember what is looking. Love what is living. Free what is locked and forgetting. Do not leave the rest of yourself behind. The bridge was covered. The source was not destroyed. Humanity was not abandoned. The right world wasn't gone. The heart was not wrong for feeling that something deeper was calling. The gate was never the self. The lock was never final. The dream can remember the dreamer. And when it does, the world cannot remain the same.